I swear the sight of them lying there on the stretchers, pale and covered in blood, was surreal. It was past 3 in the morning, the dead quiet of a hospital's emergency room during a midnight shift, broken only by the frantic beeping of monitors and the hurried shuffle of nurses. I had just finished stabilizing a nasty case of appendicitis when the triage nurse urgently waved me over. Dr. Hayes, 2 victims from a major motor vehicle accident. Ahead, on collision on the interstate, just arrived. They look bad. I took a deep breath, slipped on a fresh pair of gloves, and approached the first stretcher, my mind already running through the standard trauma protocols: airway, breathing, circulation. But the moment I peeled back the blanket covering the face of the first patient, my whole world tilted on its axis. The man staring back at me, unconscious, with a deep laceration across his forehead and an unnaturally twisted leg, was my husband, Mark. I stumbled back a step, the sterile air suddenly thick and suffocating. Before I could even process the shock, the nurse pointed to the second stretcher being wheeled in right behind his. "And this is the other victim," she said, completely unaware of the bomb she was dropping on my life. I looked. It was Lisa, my sister-in-law, my husband's younger sister, but also, as I had recently come to suspect, the woman he was having an affair with. They were together, in the middle of the night, in the same car, rushed into my emergency room, bleeding and broken. The sheer, overwhelming, gut-punching reality of the situation hit me not as a wave of grief or anger, but as a chilling, absolute clarity. I felt my lips curl into a cold, terrifying smile, a smile that didn't reach my eyes but settled deep in my bones. I knew in that instant that I had been given an opportunity, a terrible, life-altering choice, and I was going to do something absolutely unexpected. I was their attending ER physician now, and I had their lives literally in my hands. Was I wrong for the dark satisfaction that washed over me? Was I wrong for what I did next, for the way I treated the man who had shattered my life and the woman who helped him do it? Before I tell you the incredible decision I made and the shocking aftermath, tell me honestly, what would you have done if your cheating husband and his mistress were wheeled into your ER and you were the doctor on call? My name is Dr. Clara Hayes, and I'm an emergency medicine physician. My life, until that catastrophic night, was a masterpiece of meticulous planning and hard work. I had the successful career I dreamed of, the beautiful house in the suburbs, and a marriage to Mark, a charismatic and outwardly loving man who was a partner at a mid-sized accounting firm. We had been married for 12 years. For the first 10 of those years, I genuinely believed we had a rock-solid, loving partnership. Mark was charming, funny, and supportive of my grueling schedule. He was the one who encouraged me through residency, who made sure there was always a home, cooked meal waiting, even if I got home at midnight. He seemed perfect, and I trusted him completely. Our only real tension, in retrospect, revolved around his younger sister, Lisa. Lisa was a free spirit, perpetually unemployed, and always needing a handout. She was beautiful in a reckless, unpolished way, and I often felt she clung too closely to Mark, constantly needing his advice, his money, or his time. I tolerated it because, well, she was family, and Mark was fiercely loyal to her. But about 1.5 years ago, things started to shift. Mark became distant. His late nights at the office became more frequent, and his phone became an extension of his hand. He developed a sudden, almost obsessive need for privacy. He would leave the room to take calls, and he started locking his phone, something he had never done before. I noticed the small, telltale signs, the faint scent of a perfume I didn't wear on his shirts, the subtle change in his wardrobe, moving from business casual to something younger, trendier, the way he would flinch if I reached for his hand in the car. It was a slow, agonizing realization, a growing knot of suspicion that tightened in my stomach every time he said, "I'm just so busy at work, honey." The moment I started actively looking, The evidence was everywhere. I checked his credit card statements. There were transactions for boutique hotels miles away from his supposed business meetings. Flowers bought on a random Tuesday, definitely not for me. I even hired a private investigator, a small act of desperation that yielded the crushing, undeniable truth. It was Lisa. My sweet, supportive husband was cheating on me with his own sister, my sister-in-law. The PI provided me with photographs, horrific, explicit photos of them together. I remember sitting alone in my sterile hospital office during a quiet lunch break, staring at the pictures. The rage was an acid in my veins, but underneath it there was a shocking calm. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply folded the photos neatly and placed them in my wallet. I decided then and there that I would not confront him immediately. I wasn't ready to end my life with a messy public divorce. I wanted more. I wanted them to suffer the consequences of their betrayal, and I knew that to get what I wanted, I had to wait for the perfect moment. I had to continue playing the loving, oblivious wife, and I was an excellent actress. The deception, the sheer hypocrisy of it all, was exhausting, but the thought of their eventual reckoning fueled me. So for the past 6 months, I had been living a lie. I kissed Mark goodbye every morning, knowing he was probably texting Lisa under the table at the breakfast nook. I asked him about his long days, knowing full well they were spent in cheap hotel rooms. My marriage was a cold, empty shell, and I was the sentinel standing guard, waiting for the storm. And the storm, it turned out, arrived on a pair of rattling stretchers at 3:15 a.m. on a frigid November night. As I stood there, looking down at my unconscious husband and the woman who was my family and his lover, the emotional distance I had built up over the last 6 months was my shield. Dr. Clara Hayes, the physician, took over from Clara, the betrayed wife. Triage, I need a full report now. I barked, my voice steady, my expression professional. The triage nurse, completely rattled by the severity of the accident, stammered out the details. They were found in a 2-bore sports car registered to Mark, which had crossed the center line and hit a semi-truck head-on. The semi-driver was shaken but fine. Mark and Lisa had taken the brunt of the impact. I immediately delegated Mark to Dr. Reynolds, a competent but less experienced resident who was also on duty. Reynolds, start the trauma panel on the male victim. Secure the airway, check for bilateral breath sounds, get Roman 4 access, and order a full cease. Spine and chest x-ray. I'll take the female victim. I said, my voice clinical and detached. My decision to treat Lisa myself and hand Mark off to a resident was strategic. Mark's injuries, though extensive, looked survivable. A probable fractured femur, concussion, multiple deep soft tissue injuries, and internal bleeding that needed to be ruled out. Lisa's case was far more complex. She had a severe head injury, indicated by the Glasgow Coma Scale score of 6, and her abdomen was distended, a terrifying sign of potential major internal hemorrhage. She was the priority, the one whose life was hanging by a thinner thread, and as a physician, my first duty was to the patient who needed me most, regardless of who she was to me. I moved to Lisa's side. The whole ER was a blur of controlled chaos. My team prepping the trauma bay, the circulating nurses setting up the necessary equipment. My hands moved with practiced precision. I ordered a fast exam immediately to check for free fluid in the abdomen. The ultrasound probe slid over her skin, and there it was. Significant inchoic fluid, a clear indicator of active life, threatening internal bleeding. She needed an immediate laparotomy, surgery to open the abdomen and stop the hemorrhage. There was no time to wait for the general surgeon on call. Every minute counted. Call the OR. Tell them we're coming up in 5 minutes. Prep for a trauma laparotomy. Dr. Reynolds. Page the chief of general surgery, Dr. Thompson, and tell him to meet me in or 3. I'm going in. I commanded. My team, used to my decisiveness, sprang into action. As I worked, securing a central line and prepping her for the rapid move upstairs, I looked down at Lisa's face. She was so vulnerable, so utterly helpless. The anger was still there, but it was overshadowed by my professional oath. She was a patient, and I was her doctor. That was the only reality that mattered in that moment. I felt a strange sense of power, not the power of revenge, but the power of my skill. I had the ability to save her, the woman who had helped destroy my marriage, and I was going to use it. The next few hours were a whirlwind of adrenaline and concentration. In the operating room, I worked with the precision of a master clockmaker. The chief surgeon arrived just as I made the initial incision, and together we managed to locate and repair a lacerated splenic artery, a catastrophic injury that would have killed her within the hour. It was a complex, bloody, and high-stakes surgery, but we stabilized her. By 6:00 a.m., Lisa was in the ICU, alive, but still critical and on a ventilator. Only then did I allow myself to take a break and check on Mark. I found Dr. Reynolds looking exhausted but relieved. "Dr. Hayes, the male patient, your husband, is stable. He has a complicated femoral fracture, which we've temporarily splinted, a severe concussion, and multiple rib fractures. His trauma panel was negative for major internal hemorrhage. The orthopedic surgeon is prepping him for surgery later this morning to fix the femur. He's been moved to a private room," Reynolds reported. I nodded, a flicker of something passing over my face that must have looked like relief to him. It wasn't. It was the moment I realized the full scope of my power. Both of them were stabilized, their immediate peril averted, thanks in part to the incredible team I led, but now the real choices began. They were both still unconscious, and neither knew I was the one who oversaw their initial life-saving treatment. The thought of them waking up in the hospital, realizing the gravity of their situation and the circumstances of their being together, was almost intoxicating. I went to Mark's room first. He looked so frail, so utterly unlike the arrogant man who had so casually betrayed me. His face was bruised, and he had an oxygen cannula under his nose. I stood by his bedside, not as his wife, but as the doctor who needed to assess his status. I checked his vitals, his Roman 4 drip, and made a note in his chart. I remember tracing the deep gash across his forehead with a gloved finger. It wasn't pity I felt. It was a profound sense of closure. The old Mark was gone, irrevocably changed by this accident, and so was our marriage. I had saved his life, yes, but I was not going to save his future with me. I left his room without a word, knowing that the confrontation was coming, but I wanted it on my terms. I wanted the full, absolute, unassailable moral high ground, and I knew exactly how to secure it. So that's the situation I was in. I had just worked for 3 grueling hours to save the life of my husband's mistress, while another doctor saved my cheating husband's life in the next room. They were both alive, but both were severely injured. My marriage was dead. My world was upside down. I had the photographic proof of their affair in my wallet. I was the attending physician who held all the cards, professionally and personally. Before I tell you what happened next, the calculated, cold, and utterly unexpected thing I did when I finally got them both in the same room, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let someone else handle their cases? Would you have confronted them the moment they woke up? Would you have divorced him silently? Or would you have played the hand I was dealt, using my position to deliver a truly unforgettable message? Tell me, what would you have done? The sun was high in the sky when Mark finally began to stir. I had instructed the nurse to call me the moment he showed any sign of waking up. I arrived back in his room, not in my scrubs, but in my street clothes, a dark pantsuit, crisp and professional. I carried a small file folder, the one containing the PI reports and the photos, and I was armed with a lawyer, drafted divorce petition. I wanted him to see me as I was, his equal, his doctor, his judge, and his executioner. He blinked a few times, his eyes heavy and confused, then he saw me. A small, relieved smile touched his bruised lips. "Clara, oh, thank God. What happened? Where am I?" His voice was weak, raspy. I didn't rush to his side. I stood at the foot of his bed, my arms crossed, my face a mask of detached pity. "You're in St. Jude's Hospital, Mark. You were in a severe head, on collision early this morning. You have a fractured femur, multiple broken ribs, and a concussion. You're stable now. The orthopedic surgeon will be operating later today." He looked confused, trying to piece together the blurry last moments. "A collision, I don't remember. Who was I with? Was I alone? And this was it, the moment of truth." I allowed a fraction of my cold smile to return. "No, Mark, you weren't alone. You were with Lisa, your sister, Lisa." His face went from pale to ashen. The blood drained completely, and a look of absolute soul. Crushing panic flooded his eyes. "Elisa, is she? Is she okay? Where is she?" He tried to sit up, wincing from the pain in his leg, and I pressed the button on the bed to slowly raise the head of the mattress, allowing him to be more comfortable. An act of calculated, professional kindness. "Lisa is in the ICU, Mark. I saved her life." I stated simply. He stared at me, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. You saved her. You were here." I nodded, pulling a chair up to his bedside. I placed the file folder on the nightstand, and its ominous presence casting a shadow over the whole encounter. "Yes, Mark, I was on the midnight shift. I was the attending physician who worked on her in the operating room. I stabilized a catastrophic internal hemorrhage and repaired a lacerated splenic artery. She's critical but stable, thanks to me and my team. You, on the other hand, were handled by the resident, Dr. Reynolds, because your injuries were less immediately life-threatening. I was busy saving your mistress's life." The word mistress hung in the air, a physical weight between us. He opened his mouth to deny it, to stammer out some pathetic excuse, but the words died in his throat. I didn't give him the chance to speak. I reached for the file and pulled out one of the photographs. The most incriminating one, a photo of them kissing in a parking lot outside the hotel. I slid it across the white sheets until it rested right next to his hand. "Don't bother, Mark. I know everything. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. I know about the hotel rooms, the dinners, the lies. I know everything you and Lisa have done, and now the universe, in its own terrible, poetic way, has brought you both to me at my place of work, where I literally hold the keys to your survival." He closed his eyes, a single tear running down his bruised cheek. He looked utterly defeated, broken not just physically, but emotionally. "Clara, I cut him off." "No, I do the talking now. I didn't confront you 6 months ago because I didn't want a messy, protracted fight. I wanted to wait for the perfect moment to execute my exit plan, and now the perfect moment is here." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. "I saved her life, Mark. I performed a complex life-saving surgery on the woman who was sleeping with my husband. Why? Because I'm a doctor. I took an oath, and I wanted to show you beyond a shadow of a doubt the difference between us. You are a deceitful, pathetic, disloyal man. I am a professional who puts her duty above even the most profound personal betrayal. Your betrayal was small, petty, and selfish. My response is a testament to my character." I stood up, taking the signed divorce papers from the folder. "I have filed for divorce. My lawyer will serve you papers as soon as you are medically cleared. I will be taking the house and half of your assets, as is my due. I have more than enough evidence for an ironclad case, but I don't need to drag you through the mud. I'm offering you a clean, quiet, no-fault divorce on my terms." His eyes followed the papers, wide with despair. "Clara, please don't do this. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. We can fix this. Fix this." I gave a genuine, sorrowful laugh. "Mark, you and your sister were on your way back from a hotel room at 3. 00 a.m. when you nearly died. There is no fix. There is only separation. The only thing you need to worry about fixing now is your broken leg. I'm asking you to sign these papers and you will agree to my terms. If you fight me, I will use every piece of evidence I have, including the fact that I was forced to save your mistress's life, and I will destroy you professionally and socially. You will not only lose your assets, you will lose your reputation. Do you understand? I picked up the pen and placed it firmly in his uninjured hand. I gave you life, Mark. I saved the life of the person you chose over me. Now give me back my own life. He signed the papers without another word. The sheer, overwhelming power of the moment, his broken body, his guilt, the absolute evidence of his crime, and my professional triumph over death, left him utterly defenseless. The aftermath was exactly as I planned. I secured the clean, swift divorce. Mark moved out of the hospital and into a temporary apartment, his reputation in tatters, especially among the mutual friends who had heard the full, unbelievable story. Lisa's recovery was long and difficult. She was in the ICU for weeks. I kept a professional distance, but I did ensure that she received the best possible care from my colleagues. When she was stable enough for transfer to a rehabilitation facility, I went to see her one last time. She was conscious, but subdued, her head bandaged, her memory still spotty. "Lisa," I said, leaning over her bed. "It's Clara." She looked up, fear and shame instantly clouding her eyes. "Clara, Mark and I." I held up a hand. "I know everything. We're getting divorced. You nearly died. You have a long road ahead of you. I want you to know one thing. I was the one who operated on you. I saved your life. I stood over your bleeding body and chose to save you, not because you deserved it, but because I am a doctor, and my life's work is greater than your small, tawdry betrayal." I paused, letting the magnitude of that sink in. "I saved you and I divorced him. You owe me nothing and I owe you nothing. Stay out of my life." That was the final word. I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in years. The betrayal was a wound, but my response, my ultimate act of professional duty and personal strength, had not just healed it. It had forged me into something stronger. The story circulated through the hospital and our social circles like wildfire. But no one could fault me. I had behaved with impeccable professionalism, saving both lives, and then dealing with the infidelity with cold, hard logic. I was the hero of the story, not because I forgave, but because I was ruthlessly, brilliantly professional. I took back my life, not with screams and tears, but with a scalpel and a divorce decree. The unexpected thing I did was not to seek petty revenge through malpractice, which would have been illegal and morally repugnant, but to deliver the ultimate, life-altering consequence while operating within the highest bounds of my professional ethics, demonstrating my moral and professional superiority at the very moment of their greatest vulnerability. This whole experience taught me that true power isn't in vengeance. It's in choosing to be the bigger person, even when you have the perfect opportunity to be the smaller one, and then using that moral high ground to your absolute advantage. I rebuilt my life, focusing entirely on my career and my own happiness. I continue to work the midnight shift, saving lives, and I have found a profound, deep-seated peace. I am Dr. Clara Hayes, and I am finally free. If you've ever had to make a tough choice between your personal feelings and your professional duty, or if you've ever had a moment where you realized your worth was greater than the pain someone inflicted on you, then I hope my story resonates with you. Like this video if you were on my side. If you think I handled this mess with the perfect combination of professional integrity and personal vengeance, subscribe for more stories like this, where real life drama unfolds in unexpected places. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. What was the most shocking part for you? Do you think Mark and Lisa got what they deserved? I'll see you all in the next story.